looks like we got a good contingent of our remote data entry team here for the Montpelier Archaeology Archive Project. We're calling MAAP. I'll get into that in a second. But I'm looking forward to talking with you all about this today. And I'm recording, everybody, just so you know. If you all need to leave early, no worries. With you all registering, I've got your names and emails, who's on this, and I'll send you a recording. And also going to send you everybody more information about the MAAP project, but I'll get into that more closer, on near the end of the presentation. So, like I said, we'll give folks some more time to come on in, and looking forward to talking with you all today.
This is an exciting area for me, as I was, I think, there in 2007 in October. 15 years ago now, and when we were excavating Dolley's Midden, some of us, for the first time, had recently been discovered, and so this is really exciting.
Yeah, I'm actually Carol. Now that you're here, I am. I'm seeing if I can quickly find pictures of when you were at Dolley. Oh, here it is. This is the one. I'm going to put this in the slide presentation, so you'll get a kick out of this. Let's see. So I'm not going to show it to you now, Carol, but it'll be there. It'll be there waiting. Let's see. Yeah, there you are with Megan. Cool. Yeah, so that was quite a while ago, Carolyn, and it brings up a good point about what a lot of this data is, and which is legacy data. So, well, it looks like we've got a pretty a good quorum here of folks that are here. See a lot of alumni here, which is wonderful. Hello to everybody. Susan just popped up there. Good to see everyone. Really excited about having you all here today. And what I wanted, and again, I'm recording this, so if you do need to leave early or someone that missed it, we'll be able to, I'll send out that recording to everybody. But what we're going to talk about today is, set this presentation up as a discussion of two of our excavations that we did in the late aughts. The excavation at what we used to call Dolley's Midden, but today we call the Dining Room Midden. Just a more accurate way to label it. Dolley's Midden is kind of a very informal and doesn't really reflect the true nature of that deposit. It's funny how years ago there was someone in the communications office that said, Matt, you said, you talk about finding ceramics and glass, but you found Dolley's Midden? And I was like, no, what do you mean? He was like, well, that area is called Dolley's Midden. And I was like, oh, you mean Dolley's Midden? And he was like, yeah, what is Midden? So it causes all kinds of confusion. We never found Dolley's Middens in Dolley's Midden, but we did find a lot of dining room ceramics, glass, and tape, bone from animal bone, and so we were calling it the Dining Room Midden today, and that reflects also the actions of the enslaved Americans who lived and worked at Montpelier, who were the ones that were not only throwing this trash into the Midden area, this trash deposit, but then also were the ones that were responsible for the cooking and the preparing of all these meals and had the expertise to make Dolley into the hostess that she's presented to the outside world as. So, and then of course the North Kitchen was excavated about a year later as part of the tail end of the main house restoration. I see, Tom, you're nodding your head. Yes, I think you were part of those excavations as well.
I was at, both. Yep.
Yeah, you were at both of those. So, but yeah, but what we're couching these two excavations, and the reason why we're talking about these is we've got a major project that we're doing right now, which is digitizing all of the legacy data from the past 20 years of excavations at Montpelier. And what we got a grant from the Institute for Museum Library Services for putting all of the work we did during the restoration of the main house, both the architectural investigations and the archaeological investigations, into a 3D model of the house and grounds that's in GIS. And so there have been past presentations where I talked about that model and what we were doing with that project. And what we're doing now is, with the help of volunteers, many of whom are here today, is we've started a digital online project where folks can help out in the relabeling of the records from old excavation units, the Stratum Cards, the opening and closing photos, the profiles, the drawings, all that. And then about a year ago, we switched folks to the next stage, which is actually digitizing these layers into GIS and then entering the data into spreadsheets in GIS. So, we have folks that are actually adding all this, building a GIS database, a geodatabase for all of these excavations. And once they're in that geodatabase, we can begin to process this data. We can begin to put this into this 3D environment. And I'll show you a little bit of that process at the tail end of this, this presentation. But what I want, and at the end, I'm going to talk about, how, for those of you all that are interested in participating in this project, how you can get involved and what I'll be sending you all to for the next steps on this. But what I wanted to do first off is share screens. And when I start talking about the actual what's involved with the relabeling and the data entry project, I'm going to call on the current volunteers to give some testimonials about what they've been experiencing, what they've been up to, and also what the next steps will be with a workshop that we're getting set up. So I will go ahead and share screens. If anybody hasn't muted yourselves, go ahead and mute in case the dog starts barking or you get weird feedback. So, because once I share screens, I kind of lose the ability to do that. So I am going to share screens right now.
Hey, Matt, do you want to make me like a co-host or something so I could do that if
that would be great.
Unmuted?
Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Let me see here. I always forget where to do the co-hosting. That is under, oh gosh.
Participants, maybe. I don't know either. If it's too hard, don't worry about it.
Yeah, let me hear Chris Pash more. I'm going to make a co-host. Yeah, so you're a co-host now, Chris. Awesome. It was right under participants. Thank you, Chris. So I'm going to go ahead and share screens here. And what you should be able to see now is and we're still recording this. Yeah, we're still recording. What you should be able to see is the GIS screen. And I want to begin with this to show you where we're at with the digitization project. For those of you all that have either been at the main house, been visiting Montpelier for years, might be able to get a sense of where you are in this map. Can everybody see the map here on the screen? Where you all are at, this is the main house right here. So here, this is like if you took a giant knife and cut the main house off of the ground. And so here's the columns for the front portico right here. Here's the cellar areas. This is the south cellar, which sometimes we've called Nellie's cellar kitchen. This is the north cellar where we found the impressions of the herringbone brick on this side. This is the 1797 room right here that has a wooden floor today. And these are these partitions we found, not partitions, but the sleepers that we found, the sleeper impressions that we found during those excavations. And if you look, so for getting a sense of where this map is, here's the front yard, the front lawn, and the excavations we did for the fence line project up front. Here are these post holes right in here, and the archaeological features. And of course, all of these squares are the excavation units from these excavations. And so if you pull out on this map, you can see there's, all the excavations in the south yard, the stable quarter, and you go a little bit further out and you can see the stable area over here. And then of course, what we were first talking about, Dolley's Midden over here in this downslope area where you've got the road that comes down and ends up down by the archaeology office and the lab. And then here's the Pine Alley right here. The temple is right in this area, this half circle that where the units form the half circle right there. I should have put the temple in there, and Chris has given his presentation on the temple and the Pine Alley before. So hopefully that gives you an orientation of where you're at. And for the project areas, we've got a layer of these shaded areas are how we divide all these units up into their constituent project areas. So for example, for the front yard right here, when I click on this, you can see this is the report that Adam Marshall wrote back in 2012 for the front yard excavations. You go over here to the bunker, and you can see here's the excavation report by Kim, Tinkham, Adam, and myself. And then the colonnade is right here. There's the colonnade report. And then for some of the sites we're going to be talking about is the North Kitchen. Let's get the right layer here. Here's the North Kitchen report. So basically in GIS, what we're able to do is we're able to show which of the, how these areas, all these units are organized by project area. And so what's fun about this is when you get into the GIS, you start doing the data entry with some of these layers. Not only can you see what the project areas are, but if you click on this image here of the report, it actually brings up the report. So this is also a guide for how to access all of the reports that we've got across the property. And this layer for excavations, it goes all across the property. So here's the tobacco barn quarter, here's the field quarter, same sort of thing here. You click on this, and this is the report that Mark wrote back in 2014 for the field quarter. And many of y'all were on that excavation and saw the presentation on that about 6 months ago. So with this, what we're able to do with the GIS is begin to present information to the public, because all this is publicly accessible. All this is on the World Wide Web. Once you have the link, you don't need to be a Montpelier staff member. You don't need to know GIS. What Esri has done is put all these, allowed GIS users to create these maps and then allow anyone to access them. So this is where the work we're doing on this IMLS project, what the Institute for Museum Library Services is interested in, is providing a way to take the research that institutions like Montpelier has done and bring them out of the mothballs or the attics, so to speak, and give the public access to it. And what we're doing with this project is not only giving the public access to these records, but also giving the public, and in particular our expedition constituencies, you all, our dig family, a chance to take part in the digitization of these records. And so if you look at the map right here, there's so many colors here, it could give you eye problems. If we turn off the project areas, what you'll see is some of these units are don't have any shading in them, and others are shaded in green. These ones that are shaded in green, what these have are records of all of the strata that have been entered. So, in this case, Dean and Kathy and Pat and many other folks have spent hours and hours and hours digitizing these records and then putting in the corresponding files that goes with them, the opening photo, the closing photo. And so what I'll do is, after I talk about the North Kitchen and Dolley's Midden, we're going to go back and look at some of these records and talk about what this digitization process is all about. I'm not going to go into the details. That's going to be a workshop that we'll do with participants who are interested in taking part in this. But for those of y'all that have been out on a dig recently and have seen, Chris and Nathaniel and Jennifer and Lizzie and Emily and Becca all, on the iPads, not just using the iPads to take pictures, but using the iPads to put all the excavation information, including the photos, live into the system. What we're doing right now is we're backtracking, going back in time and putting all this legacy data into the same system. So a lot of you all begin to already have a sense of what this online system is all about. So, but when you pull out on this map and you look at the area we're going to be talking about, which is the North Kitchen right here and Dolley's Midden right here, you'll notice that all these units are empty. And when you click on these, there's nothing to click on because there's no data there. And so this is the North Kitchen and Dolley's Midden over here. These are the next areas that we're going to be doing work on. So I'm going to go flip over to the PowerPoint here. Oops, and you already saw your picture there, Carolyn. We're going to flip over to the PowerPoint here and talk a little bit about these areas, the North Kitchen and Dolley's Midden. And what I've tried to do with everybody who's in the project is before folks start doing the data entry and the relabeling of all the unit records, what we do is do a seminar, or in this case, a lunch and learn on what the next project area is and what happened with the excavation. So I want to give a little bit of background on what we did at the North Kitchen and Dolley's Midden, and especially the North Kitchen, because there's quite a few units we opened up in this area right here. But the North Kitchen, this is an area we excavated in 2008 and 2009. And you can see the star right here is in this area that's to the north of the main house. This is this area that an insurance map shows the location of what is called a kitchen. It's labeled as a kitchen. Found some other interesting things though that make it a little more nuanced than that. And then the other area is the Dining Room Midden, otherwise known as Dolley's Midden, Dolley's Midden, which is a downslope area from the kitchen. So if this is where the outdoor cooking area is, in relationship to the main house, when I was in the bucket truck taking this photo, behind me is Dolley's Midden. So I had the bucket truck parked about right here in this photo, taking this picture right here. And then you can see on this historic map where the kitchen, the outdoor cooking area was here, and then where Dolley's Midden is in relationship to the temple right there. Now, for the North Kitchen, we began to be interested in looking at the North Kitchen in around 2007, because where the North Kitchen is where the last remnant of the DuPont additions that were put on in 1908 was left standing. We were using this building as the workshop for the restoration of the main house. And it's only when this came down that we, decided to investigate it. And a little bit of history on this building. This building that's in pink, it's pink because all of the main house was pink during the DuPont period. If you look at this next slide right here, you can see this is a photo taken around 1908 of the main house. I'm sorry, this was taken in 1902 of the main house, because you can see the DuPont kitchen is not here. And in this next picture right here, what you can see is this building. It hadn't been stuccoed yet. This photo was taken about 1906. This is this addition that was added on around 1905 or 1906, which is this kitchen right here, this indoor kitchen with a living space for the cook up above. And this was right on top of an area that an insurance map from 1837 showed lists as being a kitchen right here. So what we were wondering, all during the restoration, and we had taken down all the second floor additions that were on the main house, like these second floor additions right here, and then the back of the house, all these wings back here, was there anything left in or under the remnants of this building right here that would relate to this 1837 plat showing a kitchen in this area. And what we're hopeful for is when these additions that were added in 1902 were put on by DuPont workers, they dug out the cellars, and all the fill from that area was moved downslope in this direction to the north of the house. And it looked like this building right here the grade was built up, because instead of having a cellar, it had an at-grade entrance, and it appeared that we could have surviving archaeological records below the fill for this building. And what was really great, when these buildings were being put on in 1902 and 1906 respectively, is the DuPonts, this is before the advent of mechanized backhoes and blades that you could move a lot of soil with quickly. All these foundations and cellars were dug by hand, which meant that there was a good possibility that the trenches for this building were very localized. So there's a lot of questions we had. So in 2008, shortly before we did the grand opening of the main house which was in September 16th of 2008, we had this last remnant of the DuPont main house taken down. And when we took it down, what we had the contractors do is come out and use a concrete saw and saw cut the floor of this DuPont kitchen. And what we discovered when we started opening up some test units in this area is where the 1837 map shows the kitchen, what we were finding is intact deposits. We found a layer of whitewash in this area that was, we thought might have been the interior floor of a building. We found what appeared to be, what could have been we thought might have been a robber's trench for a foundation. We weren't sure, but what we knew is that we had intact deposits. So we applied for grants the next year in the fall of 2009 to do a full-scale excavation of the North Kitchen. So, jump from August 30, 2008 to June 26, 2009, we had basically removed all of the DuPont fill, and we were down on the pre-DuPont surface. This was the surface where the DuPonts had the workers built the kitchen. And these foundations that you see right here, these are the foundations of the building that you see in this picture right here. So the foundation right here and this wall that's right here are this wall that's right here. And we, as archaeologists, we basically just dug around these concrete foundations because they were too massive to remove. You'd have to remove them with a backhoe, and that would have disturbed all the deposits in this area. But what we found when we continued the excavations is where we thought the building was based on the insurance plat. What we found is that we didn't have any evidence of the building in this location, but what we did find are a series of features in these corners that were separated by about 16 feet in distance, 16 by 20 feet. And when you look at these, there is what appears to be a basin full of, a hole that was dug that was full of rock that could have been a pier, another post hole, potential post hole right here, a brick rubble scatter here, and then over in this area there was this drain, and it roughly corresponded into this square. It was not really convincing information about this being a building. And when you look at how much disturbance had happened in this area, not only do you have these DuPont era walls here, but then you've also got a sewer line that cuts through here. You get drain lines through here. You got a water. There's another drain line that goes through this area, this terracotta. I mean, this was a year of doing, some incredible utility excavations. But what it resulted in was some really interesting stratigraphy in terms of we were able to date, by knowing when these foundations went in and when earlier pipes such as this terracotta drain line went in, we're able to date the deposits to before or after these foundations. And so what we're able to come up with is that we didn't really, Adam tried to make the building into a kitchen in his report, But when we subsequently excavated the south yard, we found a totally different style of architecture. We found that, you know, for buildings that were more ephemeral, like the smokehouses, there were trench laid sills. But for a kitchen, you know, that would have a massive hearth, we did not, you know, we did not find the literal smoking gun, which would have been the hearth for smoke, pun intended, haha. But we did not find any chimney base that would have been served for the cooking area for the kitchen. And what we're thinking is this might have been some kind of cooking shed. There was probably activities associated with the dining room outdoor prep that was happening in this area. But when we had done the excavations in the cellar kitchen, which is through this door right here, we had just found massive evidence for intensive cooking of the hearth that's located on the other side of this wall right here. So what we also found in this area is plenty of artifact deposits, ceramics and glass that suggested, you know, that there was activity related to food prep and food serving, you know, at the kitchen. And of course, downslope from the kitchen, what we found was a massive trash deposit. We had located this a year before, and this trash deposit is what we called at the time Dolley's Midden. And there was a massive amount of Parisian porcelain, such as this Nast and Sèvres porcelain, all kinds of transfer wares, such as what became, you know, or one of our staples, which is the bamboo and peony transferware ceramic. And then also, you know, champagne bottles, just all kinds of trash deposits that were related to the dining room. And when you look at where was labeled as the kitchen on the 1837 map, it gave a lot of plausibility for this being a prep area, because the trash deposits are on this side of the house, and on the south side of the house is where you've got, you know, what we've reconstructed today as the south yard, where, you know, the working and living areas for the enslaved house slaves were in this location. So Dolley's Midden, the dining room midden, also shared some of the same deposit patterns that we found in the at the north kitchen. And primarily what this is a series of fill deposits. The road that you see right here, this is a DuPont era road, and we found a massive set of fills. Actually, how we found this deposit is you can see these pipes sticking out of the ground here. These are PVC pipes that during the construction of the bunker, we have, you know, the bunker that's in the backyard, that underground vault that's down about 35 feet. That needed to be drained so it wouldn't be filled up with groundwater. And they did bidirectional augering, and where these pipes were going to poke out of the ground, we opened up a unit right here, and we found just massive quantities of ceramics and glasswares. And we opened this unit in the spring of 2007. And then after finishing the front lawn excavations, where we had found very little in the way of artifacts, we decided to celebrate by doing an excavation at this trash deposit that allowed us to not only, you know, just have expedition members have an amazing experience in finding all of these early 19th century tablewares and glasswares, but also allowed us to begin to understand how the enslaved house workers set the table of the dining room, and you know what became known as Dolley's entertaining, and all of the, you know, the multiple courses of meals. We were beginning to understand what sort of ceramics were being served and what was being served on the plates based on the animal bone. But what happened to this area is that, remember, I was talking about all the additions that the DuPonts had added onto the back of the house. Well, all the fill from those excavations we found in this fill deposits right here. And if you look at a profile of this area right here, which I'm going to skip this, I'll go back to that slide in a second. But what you can see is the main house is up in this direction. These are the downslope deposits heading down towards the ice pond. This red line right here is a cross section through the area we were excavating. And what we found in this area is this pink is all this DuPont fill. And that's all this area right in here, this fill where the DuPonts had the road put up in this area. And what we found in this fill was this red clay with blue modeling, which is the exact sort of clay we found when we were excavating the floors in the cellar on the north side of the house. It was this very distinctive soil color with this blue clay. And we actually found some of the same clay coloring when we excavated the temple or the ice house, the deposits associated with the construction of the ice house. And so what we're able to do is establish that in 1905, when the cellars were excavated, all the fill from that was placed on top of what was this incredibly rich trash deposit. And if you hop back a slide right here, you can see this is a picture of Carolyn right here, finding this about a quarter of a Chinese export porcelain plate that was in the upper set of these deposits in this area right here, that's right just adjacent to the temple. So what we're able to find is not only do these trash deposits, are they up on the north side or the south side of the road, but they extend on the south side of on the north side of the road as well. And when you look at this profile map and what we excavated, most of our units and most of the deposit is not in areas that we had access to, but it's actually under all this fill. So one day we want to remove this DuPont fill and get to the rest of Dolley's Midden. And there's just going to be an amazing set of deposits there. But in the meantime, what we are interested in doing is, taking the data that we've got and beginning to really, be able to analyze it more. And this is where, we get into the GIS portion of this project. So, but before I go on it, does anybody have any questions about, and I'll stop sharing screens here for a second. Anybody have any questions about Dolley's Midden or the North Kitchen? And I see Megan's here. Hi, Megan. Good to see you. Megan was part of the crew back in '02 and '03. So,
so Matt, when
yeah.
you
Hi, Jackie.
hi there, you talk about the North Kitchen excavations. I thought I should have looked up the date, but I thought that the one that I did in the North Kitchen area, where I found the life-changing straight pin. It crumbled, but it was still a straight pin. I thought it was before the North Kitchen, before the Dolley's Midden excavation. Am I misremembering that? Was there nothing done?
I think you were part of the excavations in the fall of 2009.
Okay.
And that was those excavations where we had just finished up the North Kitchen. Actually, let me share screens here again.
There was a drip line that we found, right? Around that building. There was a drip line.
Yeah, exactly.
Would have been off the roof.
Those excavations are right in here. So here's the front portico right here. Here's the path that goes around to the cellars where the exhibit is, mere distinction of color.
Yeah.
And then these foundations right here, what's in these bricks right here, you can see right here. This is that foundation for that 1760s building that is symmetrically in line with the 1765 front door right here.
Mm-hmm.
And so this the drip line you're talking about was right in this area right in here. And these excavations were what's called the Northwest Yard. Let me see if that shows up.
No, it was North Kitchen. It wasn't that one. It wasn't the pink one. It was the one that is the North Kitchen.
Yeah, can you see this, Jackie, the Northwest Yard excavations?
Yeah, but that wasn't the one I'm talking about. But
Okay.
in any case, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
All right, it's cool. Well, yeah, but that is helpful, Jackie, because when we're doing this, going through the archive, what we're trying to do with the legacy data is go through all these projects season by season. Because, as we've, when we were excavating in the cellars and under the portico in this area, we were, basically, recording the same sort of information, but we were doing it in a different way. And in the cellars, when we were in the cellar, how we were recording the layers was on Stratum Cards. And these Stratum Cards are, you can see right here, look like this. They're very basic cards. There's not a lot of room to write the information. And then by the time we get to the North Kitchen excavations, we've switched over to, Dolley's Midden. Oops, that is an old one. We've switched to these stratum sheets right here. So, one of the things that how we've been ordering, and going about doing this digitization project is going year by year. So we went from the cellar excavations to the portico to the bunker, and most recently, what the Montpelier Archaeology Archive Project team is doing is they're finishing the digitization of the front yard, and you can see they've got 2 units left right here. All these others that are in green, those are all completed in terms of all the stratum cards. And there's a few outliers here like MT 1312, MT 1295 still need to be entered. And so what folks do during this project is there's basically 2 different steps. The first step is, the step before anybody does anything is the archaeology team, all of us scan all the stratum sheets and stratum cards, and then organize them into folders on the Google Drive. And so an example of that can be seen right here. Let's go to this unit right here, MT 1290. And this one has this post hole that's right here. And when we look at MT 1290, what we see is there's a folder with all kinds of unit records. And right now, these have all been labeled. They're all labeled MT 1290, MT 1290A, CA for card, MT 1290A, photo for opening photo. And when you look at what these records looked like before they were labeled, it would have been something like this, which is, oh gosh, let's go back to Dolley's Midden. This one right here, where the sheets have, basically this name from the scanner gave it with the day it was scanned. So this one, Ron, no, actually this is, Helen scanned this on September 16th, 2021, and good luck with the time there. I'm not going to go into that. But then all these photos, you all might recognize these DSCN numbers. These are what the camera gives it. And so this record right here isn't all that, in order to understand what this photo is, you've got to open it up and zoom in, and okay, that's it, 1386B. And, it doesn't really help you in ciphering through this. But when you look at a series of these records that have been labeled, then all of a sudden, not only do they appear in order, because when you index them, the features appear together, these features right here, and then the letters all are in sequential order with like A0, A, B, and then C, is that you can have the cards and the opening photos from these strata listed together right there. And then what the volunteers have been doing is checking what records are in these folders against what records we have in the database for all of these units, and then making sure that if there's a missing strata that's in the database record, that's noted that we're missing sheets or photos, and then we can go and look for these. So this process of relabeling is not only doing relabeling, but doing an inventory of all the records. Then once these are all relabeled, the next step, and once they're done for the entire project area, the next step is to go in and actually digitize all the information. So for MT1290, I'm going to skip to this map right here. And if you look, this is this map turned sideways, so north is up. So looks a little crazy, but for anybody that knows map making, north is always up. That's just like a kind of the golden rule. And when you go into this right here and you look at MT1290 and oops, I don't want to do that. Chris is probably laughing at this. I just moved the stratum out of place. That's very bad. And it's easy to do. When you go into this and you accidentally move the stratum out of place, move it back. And this is why we want to train you all in all this, because otherwise, we're giving you the keys to the castle with this, so to speak. And we want to give you all some training, but there's also, we give you all some flexibility in terms of making errors when these happen. And we'll get into this. We've got a whole community structure we have set up for answering questions and be like, Matt or Chris, or, I've deleted all my records. What do I do? And we'll be like, it's okay. You actually didn't delete them. You just moved them out into the Atlantic Ocean. We'll capture them from the fishes and bring them back. But for this unit right here, MT1290, you can see that for stratum C right here, if we go to the cards right here and we look at stratum C down here, you'll see that for this record, all this stuff, color 5Y, silty, slightly silty clay. When you go to the record here and you look at this, what you can see here is that, let's go down to where all this is described. Let's see, yeah, silty clay, 5Y, all this is entered into categories that allow us to go back and do analysis and also get, the artifact counts of what was done during the field work, inventory numbers so we can correct the database, and then also depths, what was physically above, what was physically below, capture all this information so that we can begin to compare all the strata that are in these units in the way we've never been able to do before. And then once this, one of the most important parts of this data is all of the associated photographs, like these photo names right here, the card, the opening photo, whether there's a plan view map, are all documented in here as well. And then what happens later on with what the crew is working on is they go back in once all the stratum are entered. And if you go back to this larger IMLS map and start entering in the feature information. So from all the work that you all have done with the strata, what the crew is able to do is go in and enter all the feature information. So this massive storage pit that was in the cellar, this is in the 1797 cellar right here, that here's the final picture, the closing photo for this feature. Here's the drawing, and you can click on this and see this detailed drawing right here. Let's go back, and you can see the profile that was drawn, and then also the profile photo. We're able to bring all this information in, and what we're able to do is create this digital archive that not only allows us access to the information, but also if there are researchers that are studying fences, dating to the 1820s, we can direct them to this map, and then they can click on all these features and see all the detailed records for each and every one of these features, and it's all online. And then what's more, and what's even more exciting, is we're entering into an age where Chris and I were talking about this the other day, where the kind of virtual exploration that you can do on landscapes, the more information you've got in a database, a geo database like this, you can either be on the landscape with an augmented, with augmented reality, like basically like an iPad, walk up to the fence in this area right here and click on a map, see where this post hole is, and then bring that up on the screen and look at it. Or you can go over to the kitchen, which we've recently reconstructed, and bring up all of the photos of the excavations of all these units that gave us the information by which we were able to reconstruct the kitchen. Or you could do this virtually, from your dining room or your living room. So what we're doing is, this is the nuts and bolts of all these excavations. And, for years we wondered, whether or not we'd ever want to digitize this material. And if we simply digitized it into, say, a database, like an Access database or into Excel, and it wasn't attached to a map, it probably wouldn't be that useful. But when you can take, these records and do a filter and filter out, all of the units that had, a heavy concentration of charred wood from the soil descriptions, all of a sudden you can begin to see patterns of, for instance, was there a difference between the deposits we found in the wine cellar where there's no hearth from the deposits we found in the kitchen or in the cellar that had a hearth? Is there evidence for domestic life in these areas? And the artifact deposits sometimes don't show this. I mean, this is why we do all the recording of all the soil colors, is, we can begin to quantify the data that's in here, whether there's whitewash deposits, whether there's charred wood, basically, these kind of questions don't come up until you get all this stuff into a geodatabase. And the beautiful thing about a geodatabase is, any of these fields that we've got recorded, like in this one right here, if you go to discard edits, we go back to this one right here, we look at this one, in the soil descriptions, you've got, there's the texture, but then also sediment inclusions. In these, you get recorded, whether there's brick inclusions, whether there's, like, again, the charred wood inclusions. We can begin to quantify this stuff and really do analysis on a level that we haven't done before, or, give access to, and I'm going to stop sharing screens right now. We can give access to graduate students to all this information who are in California. Before they have to come to Montpelier to access this. I mean, Megan, when you were doing your thesis at William and Mary on Mount Pleasant, you would have thought you had died and gone to heaven if you could have accessed all the data from, your apartment in Williamsburg. I mean, you would have been able to, you wouldn't have to cram all this into a summer and, living in one of the abandoned buildings at Montpelier at the time. I can't remember where you were living, Megan. I think it was in one of the property buildings.
I was in the yellow, the concrete across the road behind some building. It's across, but it was across. Is it 28 or?
Oh, yeah, the Houseworth Lane.
Yes,
Yeah, that's right, Houseworth. Yeah. So you would have been able to do this from Williamsburg and done it through the semester. So what we're able to do is give access to the data for students, for researchers. We're going to, instead of, say, Megan having to get a grant to do research, a grant to be able to come to Montpelier and access the records, Megan could have stayed at her job down in Williamsburg and done this on the weekend. So it's going to allow, all different types of research to happen, and then also allow for all kinds of possibilities with visualization and all kinds of possibilities. I mean, until we do this, we're not going to know what the possibilities are. But one thing I wanted to do was to let you all know what the next steps on this process are. I've got, for everybody on this call, I've got I've got your all's email. I'm going to send out an email with a Google survey form asking you some questions about whether you're interested in, doing this project, your experience in using Google Drive, what experience you have with mapping, that sort of thing. You don't have to have any experience to join in the data entry project. And, to give testimony to that, would love to have any of the folks like Tony or Dean or Kathy or anyone else who have been doing this for the past year and Peggy, I see you there, Peggy. Give a little testimonial about what the process has been like, and what the ups and downs and the fun and learning process has been like. Hey, Tony.
Hey, should I go first?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Tony.
So, yeah, sure. So, as most of you heard, I'm actually down here right now in the parking lot of the visitor center down at Montpelier, because I'm also metal detecting as one of my hobbies and interests, and which I've been able to help out down here with Matt on doing surveys with his staff detectors, Dennis, since 2014. So when I heard that here was an opportunity, we could just work from our houses and all, so I jumped into it. And I got to tell you, computers and looking into things is not my expertise, but Matt and the others were really just a good team help, and we worked through it, and I really have enjoyed it. It's been really a privilege, very rewarding, and it's had being a native Virginian, I always had an interest in American history and Virginia history. And then, of course, Montpelier with James Madison, and then coming down here and working with archaeologists like Matt and others, it's really scratched my itch very well, especially in my retirement years here now. So it's easy. It's not dominating. I would encourage anybody who wants to look into it to at least go to the next workshop and find out a little bit more about it. And and go from there. So it's just, and the beneficiary, of course, is Matt and Montpelier, because as volunteers, we really get to help him, put all this together so that everyone else can enjoy it and learn from
it. And one thing it does, thank you, Tony, really appreciate it. One thing this also does is the hours that you spend on this project, we're able to use as a match for the grant. And that allows us to really leverage our time to having staff do the more intensive work that needs to happen on this project at site, where other records can be accessed, such as some of the field records, and do some of the parts of the project where, for what the volunteers are doing, most folks, hop in for an hour, sometime in the evening or in the morning. But for some of the processing and feature paperwork, like what Lizzie and Nathaniel and Jennifer are doing, if they did it just for an hour, they would just kind of get into where they were into the groove of looking at a feature, and then they'd have to go and begin all over again. They need like an 8-hour block to really sit down and hammer out everything and spread all the paperwork out to understand things. So it's a huge help, both, your hours are a donation for us that we're able to use to get the money from IMLS, but then the time, you all are going to become experts at this site, and it also makes it that much more exciting to come on the expedition program, and all of a sudden what's going on in the background with all the data entry and the forms and all that. So I know, Tony, you had said that that you all of a sudden had appreciation for the paperwork. Anybody else? Dean, I see you there. Hi,
yeah, I've enjoyed working on this a tremendous amount over the past 2 to 3 years, I guess, the digitization. I still can't say digitization, but I've been working on it. And what I've been doing just most recently is working on a unit that had in the fence line south area, which you pointed out earlier, Matt, that had been in the problem folder. And what we do when we're doing either the relabeling or digitization of the cards of the units within a unit is, if we run into a problem with it, something we're not sure about, what we do is we can put that unit, move it over into the problem folder. And then at some later time, we'll come back and take another look at that unit in the problem folder, work on it some more, and and hopefully get it into the completed folder and fix what's wrong with it. So anyway, I found it very interesting working on this NP 1327 in the fence line south. And so I did, in the process of taking another look at it, it had gone into the problem folder. I did a little bit more relabeling on it. And then I will very soon, I haven't quite started it yet, I'm just going to check over the digitization of the cards in the unit that have already been done. Mm-hmm. And so I'm hoping that I'll be able to get that moved into the completed folder. And when it's in the completed folder, that means all the units in the fence line south will have been done. So I don't know, I just find that, it's just kind of, I've enjoyed doing that because I can really see I'm, getting something done here. I hope I'm doing it right. Now, it's possible that I will when in the process of doing this, I will run into some problem I don't know how to handle. That could happen. If so, I will put it back into the problem folder and let you know, Matt, that's what I've done. So, but that's kind of this, having a problem folder, having someplace to put something if you're not sure how to handle it, is part of what we do. And I think it's
yes. And that, thank you, Dean. That's one of the major things that I've learned in working with all of you all is how to come up with a way to deal with issues in the labeling or the digitization, where really it could happen 3 different ways and it would still be basically correct. And that's where, you don't need to worry about doing something wrong. What we do ask, the volunteers to do is, if you have a question, move on to another unit and put that, like Dean said, put that into a question folder. And I'm going to share screens for one more time, because one of the processes one of the apps that we use in the process of doing this Montpelier Archaeology Archive Project is what's called Slack. And it's kind of like Christmas for me whenever I open up Slack, because I'm always wondering what kind of questions I'm going to get, and just everybody has really interesting observations. It's basically like a text channel, and we'll explain all this in the workshops that we do for getting you all initiated, for those of you who are interested. But you can see there is, an endless line of communication that's happened. This is in the digitize channel, over the past year, about different, processes and questions. And so here's a picture of Helen, doing the scanning. She was doing scanning of the next project. So I just sent this in there to have everybody say hello to Helen. And what we've been able to do is develop a family, not only asking questions, but also we have a Keep It Positive file where people can, I sent everybody pictures. I was away at Thanksgiving and I was like, hey, I might not be able to answer your questions, but here I am with a family, eating Thanksgiving. So it's a way to not only, answer questions, but also just, share in what each other is doing. Here's Pat visiting a point of interest on GIS Day. So, but what I've really enjoyed about this is not just getting the work done, but also, getting to know the volunteers, you all even better, and, we already have this, this dig family that the only thing that's sad about the dig family is we only get to see you all maybe once a year. Like Mark out there in California, I haven't seen you since, was it this spring? Oh, you're muted, Mark. Sorry, but it's okay, Mark. I haven't seen you.
Yes.
October. You haven't seen you since October, but with this archive project, I get to interact with Dean, and every day he's in DC. I get to interact with Peggy, who's in Florida, just about every week. It's really, it's a nice way to keep in contact with everybody. And, it's a way to, you know, share in the discoveries that we've made through the years. And it's kept, you know, it's really brought the what would otherwise be a pretty dry project absolutely to life. And one thing that I know a lot of you all have said about the digitization project is, you know, it's essentially like a virtual excavation where you're starting with a unit, and since we've compiled all the records into one place, you get to go from the topsoil all the way down to the features that we found. And some units are, you know, pretty ho-hum, you know, just like grass, topsoil, transition to subsoil, and then subsoil. But others, you know, where there's a feature like the one in 1290 where there is an intact post from 1830 inside a post hole, that's pretty mind-blowing. And so one of the aspects that we want to do with this project is to have you all not only crowdsource the data entry of this information, but also you all are interested in archaeology from, you know, the ground up, and to get insight from you all is, you know, what in this archive is really, you know, post-worthy, what, you know, not post like postal worthy, but post social media worthy, you know, get ideas about how to present this data in a whole new way. Because, you know, as archaeologists, we have, you know, we tend to focus on some of the analytical parts of it, which you all would as well. But also there's aspects of this that being, you know, folks, you know, that you have different backgrounds, being able to see what might appeal to school kids versus other, you know, people that have never been on a program before, you know, just there's all kinds of applications with this that we're beginning to explore. And it's what is I've been talking with folks at NASA. I saw Tara on here earlier. She's a NASA a scientist. That NASA's, you know, been the leader in doing citizen science on a remote basis, like, you know, looking for quarks out in the, you know, from the Hubble telescope, where there's, you know, hundreds of thousands of photos that need to be gone through. This is kind of our own version of, you know, the Hubble telescope with all these photos. We have tens of thousands of photos from over 2,000 units that have been excavated through the seasons, and we can't do it alone. You know, having you all help with this has made this all possible. It's allowed us to go, you know, expand the IMLS project from just those units in the main house to all of the projects that are associated with the restoration. And with the work that Tessa, who's our architectural historian, she's going to be doing a lunch and learn this spring. Wait a minute, what season are we in right now? It is February. Oh my goodness, February. In the spring, we're going to have her do a lunch and learn talking about her project as well, which is the house and the restoration part of it. So you'll be able to see how all this connects. So, but what I'm going to do is, I've got your all's email. I'm going to email you all, and if you're interested in taking part of this project, I'm going to have you fill out a Google form. And it's going to give us some background information about, you know, what your experience is, your comfort level is with you know, working with files on the computer, what kind of hardware you have. I mean, do you have, you know, an iPad along with your notebook computer? That, you know, with the iPad, we're doing all the field recording on an iPad or even on a phone. And so there are apps you can access with this puppy that allow you to do digitization in a very different way than on your computer screen. So what you can do with an iPad is you can have the maps up on your iPad, and then on your computer screen have the Google folder with all the archived records up there, and go back and forth. So we want to see what hardware you all are working with. And then, you know, begin to understand. We're going to be doing a workshop in about 2 weeks where we bring everybody together and talk about the nitty-gritty of the first step, which is relabeling. And then we're going to break everybody out into breakout rooms, and we'll have, depending on how many people we have, we'll have one of us, like Chris, and by us I don't mean just staff, but also the volunteer experts like Dean and Tony and Peggy and Kathy, work with you all on digitizing, relabeling a unit. and getting into the particulars, and then we'll come back and answer questions that might come up. So we're gonna, step you into swimming, from the shallow end of the pool, and gradually you'll be swimming strokes and doing the GIS before you know it, which is really exciting. So anybody have any other, any of the volunteer crew have any other comments, or staff as well, about their experience, or anybody have questions about this process? Let me see if there's anything in the chat here. Oh, I see. Yeah, some of you all, oh yeah, you're back, Megan. You had to take your dog out. So cool. Chris, do you have anything to add?
Not really. It'd be redundant, but I think the cool thing about this project is it's not just making the stuff more accessible. It's like bringing the events of 200 years ago to live into the future, not just in the present, in a way that's continually reusable and makes the meaning of people's lives in the past increasingly relevant and not forgotten. So by being able to do this, it's very valuable in that way too. So we're glad that we can't do it all alone, or we can't do it alone. So it's amazing that we're able to crowdsource this and get people involved who really care. But anyways,
Chris, that was not redundant. That was beautiful. And thank you for bringing my work to what I was saying to the next level. So that's awesome, Chris. Thanks.
No problem. And then I'll plug randomly. There's not archaeology related, but there's a talk tomorrow night that Katie Crawford Lackey is hosting. I think what time is that, Katie? 8 p.m. or something? 6 p.m.
It's at 7 p.m. tomorrow. It's part of a new series called The Legacies of the Constitution, and it's looking at self-emancipation and kind of the U.S. colored troops and that experience around the Civil War.
Katie, could you send me that link, and the email I send out, I'll send it out to everybody. Yeah, it'd be easier because I usually BCC everybody just for privacy. If you send me the link, I'll send it out. And what I'll do is I'll put your email, Katie, in the CC line. So if anybody wants to ask you more information, they can. I'm excited to hear that one, Katie.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you. And for the crew that's working on this in terms of the features right now, like Nathaniel and Lizzie and Jennifer, do you all have anything to add to the process? What it's like to go through some of the volunteers' records to get at what you all are working on?
All I can say is that it's really fascinating, not only to look through 20-plus-year-old records of, stuff that we've not worked through ourselves. It's other people's work and, digging, but it's fascinating to see how the methodology and the way that we do archaeology has changed over the years. So it's really interesting to understand more about what we do and why we, take measurements a certain way and look at how we have in the past. So you're constantly learning.
Yeah, definitely. There's been changes to the archaeology. Thanks, Nathaniel. And you can see it. The biggest change is going from the cards to the sheets. But even with the sheets, there's slight nuances that change, and that's why we have the like a field guide for every season and archive those. Don't throw the old ones away, because it's really. I'm so glad we saved the old ones, because that's part of what you all read to understand the records you're looking at, and it's a big help.
I feel like I was in the dark days because there was no digital, and I'm like, what? It's crazy how much has changed. It's wild.
Megan, the dark days were 2 years ago for us. So 2 years ago, we were like, when the wind blew across the site and all the paperwork blew away, we were like, no, all the records are gone.
Now, there was a season where I was doing everything on paper and in digital before we fully switched. So I was doubling all the paperwork. So that was the test season.
So today, if an iPad blew away, then we'd be sad because they're expensive, but we still have all the data. Hey, Gwen, you had a question. Hi, Gwen.
Hey, Matt. I wanted to ask you a question about the field guides you were just referencing, that you have saved them through the years. Are those also going to be digitized and included in part of this project? for reference?
Well, the nice thing about those is those are already digital because we did those in Word, like a Word document, and then they're a PDF. So some of the background information that you all will have is those field guides that you'll be able to look at and then help you look at the paperwork that you're either relabeling or digitizing. So they'll, you know, it's a guide that shows you how to fill out the form, but also what those guides are meant to do is make the recording consistent, like using consistent terminology, and then you'll be able to weed out, you know, discrepancies that might be on forms, because again, all these forms are filled up by humans, not robots. So there's, you know, errors that occur, and then you're like, oh my goodness, do I fill this out with the error or not? And that we'll get into all that during the training sessions.
I just thought it was interesting as an archive of the archival process.
Yeah, it's very meta. It is very meta. So, and actually, to get even more meta, we have guides for doing what you all are going to be doing. So there's the guide on how to, you know, do the archiving, and then there's the guide for how the excavation happens. So it's been a really fun process working through all this.
Neat.
Especially
Thanks
for GIS geeks like us.
Right on.
Yeah, Chris says we love guides. So, oh, thanks, Keith. Well, good seeing you all. I see, you know, Ron and Eric, all sorts of folks. Tom over there. But what we'll do is we will, I'll send you all an email with a recording of this, because there's a number of people that had to leave early. But then also, again, more information about what the next steps are, and then look for that Google form. And if you could fill that out, we'll get together on what day and time to set up the next step, which is a workshop on how to do the first step, which is relabeling. And then we'll do a Zoom webinar where we all get together, go through what the relabeling process is, break you all out into rooms and do some sample relabeling, and then set you all to work on getting this done. So, and the more we have involved, don't feel like we are not going to run out of paperwork. I guarantee you. There's so many units, and I'll send you some sample maps so you can poke around in some of this data. So, but well, good seeing everybody. Let me see if there's anything left in the chat. You know, well, thank you all. And but we'll see you all in the on an email next. So great. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in today.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. Bye-bye.